What if you had to live in a completely sealed bubble, cut off from the outside world? No fresh air, no new water, no food deliveries, just you, some plants, and a whole lot of science. Sounds like science fiction, right? Well, it's a real scientific endeavor, and it's called a closed ecological system. Today, we're diving deep into some of the most ambitious and fascinating experiments ever conducted, where scientists tried to create a tiny, self-sustaining Earth in a bottle. From massive glass domes in the desert to tiny spheres floating in space, these projects are pushing the boundaries of what we know about life, survival, and our own planet. And what they discovered might just hold the key to our future, both here on Earth and among the stars. So, what exactly is a closed ecological system? Imagine a perfectly sealed aquarium. Fish produce waste, which bacteria break down into nutrients for the algae. The algae, through photosynthesis, produce oxygen for the fish and serve as a food source. It's a miniature, self-contained world. Now scale that up a lot. The goal of a closed system is to replicate Earth's biosphere, where everything is recycled. Air, water, and waste are all processed and reused within the system. Nothing gets in and nothing gets out except for energy, usually in the form of sunlight. Why would we even attempt such a thing? The reasons are huge. These systems are crucial for long-duration space missions, like a trip to Mars or setting up a lunar base. It's simply not practical to pack enough air, water, and food for years. We need to be able to grow and recycle it. But it's not just about space. Studying these closed worlds gives us an incredible insight into how our own planet's ecosystems work and how fragile they are. The most famous and perhaps infamous of these experiments is Biosphere 2. Built in the Arizona desert in the late 1980s, this was a massive, 3-acre glass and steel structure. It was designed to be a completely sealed, self-sustaining replica of Earth, complete with a rainforest, an ocean with a coral reef, a savanna, a mangrove swamp, and even a desert. The goal was to see if 8 people, the biospherians, could live inside for 2 years. Growing their own food and recycling all their air and water, it was an incredibly ambitious project. The first mission began in 1991. 8 crew members sealed the airlock behind them, ready for a 2-year journey inside their new world. Initially, things seemed to be going well. They were farming their own food, managing the different biomes, and conducting research. The world watched, captivated. This was a real-life science fiction story unfolding before our eyes, but it didn't take long for problems to arise. One of the biggest challenges was something we all take for granted: oxygen. The oxygen levels inside Biosphere 2 began to drop steadily and mysteriously. They went from a healthy 21% down to a dangerously low 14%. A level you'd find at an altitude of over 13,000 feet. The crew members were constantly exhausted, suffering from sleep apnea, and struggling to perform their duties. The cause was a combination of factors. The incredibly rich soil they had brought in was teeming with microbes that consumed oxygen at a much higher rate than anticipated. Compounding the problem, the unsealed concrete within the structure was also absorbing oxygen as it cured. The plants just couldn't produce oxygen fast enough to keep up. Eventually, for the safety of the crew, the mission controllers had to make a tough decision. They pumped in oxygen from the outside. This broke the closed system rule and sparked a lot of debate about the experiment's validity, and oxygen wasn't the only issue. Food became a constant struggle. The crew was on a calorie-restricted diet for almost the entire 2 years. They were perpetually hungry. Pollinating insects died off, so the crew had to spend hours pollinating crops by hand. Pests like cockroaches and crazy ants thrived in the absence of natural predators and became a massive nuisance. The social dynamics also broke down. The 8 crew members, under immense physical and psychological stress, split into 2 rival factions who barely spoke to each other by the end. Despite all these challenges, the first mission was completed after 2 years. The crew emerged skinnier and a bit shaken, but they had survived. Biosphere 2 taught us invaluable lessons. It showed us just how incredibly complex and interconnected Earth's ecosystems are, and how difficult they are to replicate. It was a humbling reality check. We learned that something as simple as the interaction between soil, microbes, and concrete can have massive, unforeseen consequences. While Biosphere 2 is the most famous, other countries were also running their own experiments. In the Soviet Union, and later Russia, the BIO series of experiments took a different approach. Starting in the 1970s at the Institute of Biophysics in Siberia, these were smaller, more controlled underground bunkers. BIOS 3, for example, was a 315 cubic meter habitat. Unlike Biosphere 2's attempt to replicate entire ecosystems, BIOS 3 focused purely on the life support functions. The system used chlorella algae in reactors to regenerate the air, recycling carbon dioxide into oxygen. And higher plants like wheat and vegetables were grown hydroponically under artificial lights to provide food. Crews of 2 or 3 people would live inside for missions lasting up to 6 months. They successfully achieved near-complete closure of air and water recycling. They could produce enough vegetables to support themselves, though they still relied on some stored food like meat. The BIOS experiments were less glamorous than Biosphere 2, but in many ways they were more successful from a purely technical standpoint. They provided a solid, practical foundation for designing life support systems for space. And the quest continues today. China has entered the game with its Yugongwen, or Lunar Palace 1, facility in Beijing. This is another highly advanced closed-system laboratory. It consists of a main living cabin and a plant cultivation modules. Like the BIOS experiments. It focuses on functionality over trying to recreate natural biomes. In 2018, 8 student volunteers completed a 370-day experiment inside. They successfully cultivated vegetables, fruits, and even mealworms as a protein source. The system achieved 100% recycling of oxygen and water and provided most of the crew's food. This experiment was all about stability and long-term reliability, key factors for a potential moon base. They tested how the system responded to different crew rotations and psychological stress, gathering crucial data for future space colonists. So, what have all these bubbles, bunkers, and palaces taught us? The biggest takeaway is a profound appreciation for our own planet. Biosphere 1. We live inside a perfectly functioning, incredibly resilient, and mind-bogglingly complex closed system that has sustained life for billions of years. We get our oxygen, water, and food for free, without having to think about microbial activity in the soil or carbon dioxide scrubbers. These experiments show that while we can technically build life support systems, recreating the stability and effortless grace of Earth's ecosystems is a monumental challenge. Every failed crop, every oxygen dip, every pest outbreak in these sealed worlds is a stark reminder of our dependence on the delicate balance of our own planet's environment. The future of humanity may very well be in space, living in habitats derived from these very experiments. But these projects also send a powerful message back to Earth. They are the ultimate lesson in environmental science. They teach us that we need to be better stewards of our own biosphere, because building a new one is a lot harder than it looks. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey into these closed worlds as fascinating as I did, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into science and technology. What do you think is the biggest challenge to creating a self-sustaining colony on Mars? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time.